Namaste dost. So you've come across this video because you are looking to find the truth. You are actually trying to find a way of life in this modern society, in the 21st century. Of course, since time began, we have been shown many ways of living by many religious leaders and philosophers who have taught us this way or that way. Um, but of course, what they taught us back then was relevant for then. And what a lot of us think is that how could we possibly apply what they taught us, say 2,500 years ago or 50,000 years ago, to current life? Now, how can we possibly live a life, a holistic life, a life of well-being in the way the society is at the moment? Um, and therefore, a lot of us don't even try because it just seems like a mammoth task. It seems like something that we just can't do and we won't be able to do. It's pretty daunting. Um, I've been thinking a lot about it and, trying to work out if there was just one thing that we could do in our lives without listening to different factions, without buying into different books that tell us different things, or different political leaders, or different religious leaders, or various philosophers, and all the things that they tell us. There's so much coming our way. We're completely, totally bombarded by all this information that's coming towards us. There are yogis who are telling us this is what we should do. There are people who are talking about health. There's food companies, there's well-being companies, there's psychologists. Can you imagine all of this coming our way? Totally being bombarded, all this noise around us. How is anybody supposed to live quietly and peacefully without being influenced all the time in today's day and world? A world full of social media, full of noise, full of chaos. So I've been thinking a lot about it and thinking, how is it possible? I mean, I'm pretty old, but for somebody who's younger, how could they navigate the matrix of life in the way the life is spread out today? So as I was thinking about this, I came to a very simple conclusion. And it may work for some, it may not work for some. I'm speaking from experience. It has worked for me. So I started off my journey with simply sitting quietly 5 minutes a day and focusing on my breath. So all I would do was sit in a quiet place and just focus on this breath. Because our breath is our only reality. It is the only truth. And the more I focused on my breath, the more I found that I was getting lost in the breath. I would just focus on the breath coming in and going out. This technique was actually taught to us 2,500 years ago by Lord Buddha, who gave us Vipassana meditation. And after having read a lot about Vipassana and listened to his to S.N. Goenka's discourses, I kind of still felt overwhelmed. I still felt like I was being asked to do too much, sit for an hour a day or twice a day for an hour and focus on my breath. It was just too much. So I was trying very desperately to simplify this process. And I've come to the conclusion that for me personally, sitting 5 minutes to begin with, sitting 5 minutes a day and focusing simply on my breath coming in and out has opened up so many doors for me. I found that without me actually seeking for something and chasing after something, way was opening up for me. The synchronicities were, I was finding all the synchronicities in different things that I do. Opportunities are coming my way, were coming my way that I couldn't have envisaged would happen. And something changed within me. It was subtle and it was slow, but it was definitely there. There was, my thought process started to change and become more holistic. I started to look for healthier ways of living, not just body but mind too. And in fact, books started to just land up on my lap, that I needed to learn something from. So I carved out my own path of a peaceful life, of a life which is in synchronicity actually with the energy around me. But I found that it was something that I hadn't been forced to do. It wasn't somebody telling me, do this, do that, do that. This is the culture, this is the ritual. We need to perform this, we need to sit for this many hours. None of that. It is literally just 5 minutes a day. And then, in fact, it increased to twice a day, 5 minutes for twice a day. I would just sit quietly. Thoughts would come into my head about what I had to do or about an idea or something, and I would just look at it and say, okay, you're here. And then I was distracted for a few seconds, and then I would go back to the breath. But what I found was that it was a very gentle process. It was a very accepting process. It was a very peaceful process. There was none of the conflict or the stress or the pressure actually that comes from being forced to do something. I just found my way. And I think that is the best gift, best message that I can send out today. Just sit for 5 minutes, twice a day, focus on the breath, and see where it takes you. Because your path is yours. Nobody needs to tell you how to live your life or how to carve out a life of peace and well-being. After all, that's what we're all looking for, peace and well-being. But we don't need to get that message from anybody. We need to find it for ourselves. Because when we feel our way into a life of well-being, of peace, we automatically attract to ourselves those same kind of people who want to also live that way. What happens is our vibration gets higher as we learn to sit quietly and pay attention to our breath. And as our vibration becomes higher, we attract people with higher vibration, and it's then just a domino effect, and everything in life starts to work in a very peaceful way, which just flows gently and slowly. And to be really honest with you, we achieve more through letting things come to us than from chasing after things, which is what the world today is telling us. It's telling us, set your goals, concentrate on what you want, pay attention to what you want, think about what you want. That is all fourth dimensional thinking. But when we learn to sit quietly and pay attention to our breath, we work from our fifth dimension. And we all need to remember that the universal intelligence is far greater than our fourth dimensional intelligence. And the portal ways to open up that fifth dimension is to begin with just paying attention to that breath. That's my simple message to you today. Namaste, dost. Have yourselves a superbly prosperous life. Was that it was a very gentle process. It was a very accepting process. it was a very